The PlayAction Podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
The Bills are now 5-4 after a loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll go through what was most discouraging about the loss, but what we still found encouraging.
The Bills' offense has not been elite for most of the last 5 weeks. How much of it is on Ken Dorsey?
And up next are the Denver Broncos. We'll go through how the Bills match up with them and where they could maybe capitalize on this team. The PlayAction Podcast starts now.
The Bills stand 5-4 after their loss in Cincinnati Sunday night. Let's just take a big picture look at how to view where this team stands. The computer analysis, the New York Times playoff machine, has them at a 47% chance to make the playoffs, which is actually the 7th best chance. So by the computer model says they are squeaking into the playoffs. Katherine, what would you say is, from your perspective, the most discouraging thing about the loss to the Bengals?
Oh, yeah, I think weird game. I would say most discouraging is the injuries piling up on the defense still. I think Terrell Bernard, who's in concussion protocol now, if he's unable to be back against the Broncos, obviously there's that extra day of cushion. That's a big loss, but I think more just the trend of injuries piling up. Micah Hyde was hurt. Dane Jackson was should be good to go, but was also injured. Christian Benford as well. So I think just the fact that all of these are piling up on the defense, which is already very banged up, is very discouraging.
Yeah, which makes you wonder, can they hang on and win these games coming up that they're supposed to win? Okay, that's a good point. Let me go over a few. One, Josh throws a terrible interception early in the game for the second time in the last 3 games. Bad read. Let's face it, Joe Burrow is better than Josh. Josh is great, but Burrow is greater. He is more ruthlessly efficient. Number 2, discouraging, Cincinnati has better weapons. Let's call Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs a draw. Okay, let's leave that there. But Gabe Davis has 0 catches against the Bengals. T. Higgins is better than Gabe Davis all day, every day. Tyler Boyd is better in the slot than Khalil Shakir or anybody else the Bills have all day, every day. The Bills are not offense is not quite in the Bengals class. Now, having said that and brought everybody a cold slap in the face, let's look at it a little optimistically. Okay. So, let's put a little perspective. It is 1 game. Okay. At the start of the season, if we all had to predict, would they win or lose the Bengals? We'd probably mark that down for an L. They lost 24-18. Okay. A long way to go. What would you say, Katherine, what was one thing maybe you were most encouraged by from that game?
I continue to be encouraged by Dalton Kincaid. He had 10 catches on 11 targets for 81 yards. I think just working him in more and more, especially now that they need to, has been encouraging. So that's one thing I would say. This last stretch, it's just the continuation. You can look at this game in a vacuum, but I think also since basically the Patriots game, he's shown that he can be consistent.
And that their possession passing game is better than last year because of Dalton Kincaid. There's just no way about it. And I don't know about what you think, but what do you think? The fumble at the Cincinnati 11,
yeah,
it was a play, right? I mean, it was a great play by Jermaine Pratt, but I don't, what are you going to do? I don't blame Kincaid for that. Do you?
I think there's a little rookie-ish to it of trying to, maybe you don't hurdle the guy right there. But so that part, I would say, obviously that was pivotal in the game, but I would just say kind of overall, I still thought his involvement was good.
Okay. My answer, optimistically. Okay, so they lose 24-18. They did play better than in the playoff game. And now let's look at, so even if we say Cincinnati is a little better than the Bills, which I'm not disputing at all, Josh throws a bad interception. They fumble at the Cincinnati 11. They easily could, and the Josh's interception led indirectly to a Cincinnati score. They play a clean game. They're easily there in the final 2 or 5 minutes, right there, even. So the Bills, let's just say the next time, if they have to play Cincinnati again in the playoffs, they theoretically would have Daquan Jones and Matt Milano back. Let's just say, right? Because they haven't been rolled out. Let's say they're back in January. So you bring those two guys back, build the pass rush. Von Miller is a little healthier. The defense, theoretically, if there's no more injuries, it will be in a stronger position in January than it was on Sunday. Bills offense plays cleaner. It's a coin toss game. That's the best I can give you from an optimistic point of view.
Always the optimist here. But yeah, I think it is important to remember that this there's still a long season to go. Obviously, squeaking into the playoffs, not kind of where we would have predicted them, I think, at this point earlier in the season. But I think it's important to be realistic of, losing this game puts the pressure on the Bills for the rest of the season in a way that, I think they feel ready to respond to. They've answered in the locker room after the game. I think it was still kind of a little stunned that they had lost, but it'll be interesting to see how they respond this week. There continues to be a lot of discussion about Ken Dorsey and his role as offensive coordinator, though not much discussion from Sean McDermott, who said, no, there's no consideration in changing his role. And yes, he remains confident in him. But Mark, what do you think, just kind of this point of the season, what's going on with this Bills offense, and how much of those struggles do you attribute to Dorsey?
I think certainly the coaches bear a share of the blame. I think, the bottom line results are the offense has averaged 20.2 points over the last 5 games since the defense started getting banged up. And the offense needed to carry more of the load, not less of the load, after the injuries to Trey White, Daquan Jones, and Matt Milano. So certainly the offense is underachieving. I think I am not in favor of firing Dorsey. We'll see where I stand at the end of the season. It would be utterly pointless. The guy behind him who would take over, Joe Brady, is the same, and I think what Dorsey's direction of the offense has made sense throughout this season. I think that their problems, I do think they need to be scheming up a little better. It just is discouraging that Gabe Davis could have 10 catches against the Bucs and not one against Cincinnati. This is a separate subject. I think Gabe Davis is a fine number 2 receiver, but I don't think they should keep him after this year. I think they should move on and have somebody cheaper. I think Josh's interceptions, I think maybe the biggest coaching criticism I have is they're not getting the most out of Josh. Josh has 9 interceptions in 8 games. He's on pace for 19 in 17 games. That would be a career high. He had 14 in 16 games last year. He had 15 in 17 games. He's the year before. They need to get him playing more efficiently, and I think that's on Josh and on the coaches, both.
Are you sure Ken Dorsey's not just calling for interceptions? He's just calling for the interception play there.
You're so funny.
No, to your point, the turnovers have been a huge issue, and I don't think those have been on Dorsey, obviously. You mentioned in the segment before, if they clean up that game, they're in it until the end. And so I think there is a lot of criticism. There's warranted criticism of what's going on with this offense, but I think the biggest thing in so many games has been these turnovers, and that's not necessarily on Ken Dorsey. I remain confident he's not calling for those. But I think as well, just kind of looking at what they're doing big picture, he's still got the players' confidence. And I think that's an important thing as well, of players, I think for the most part, guys really believe what they're doing there. There's frustration when it doesn't work, obviously. But I think, to your point, I don't think a midseason change at OC really helps this team.
Yeah, and we're gonna find out. I mean, well, every game is a little more data and information. I mean, if you look at the advanced analytics, the offense is not off that far off pace. It's just that with the defense struggling, and the offense needs to be elite, and and it is not too much to ask for the offense to be elite, right? But the offense also, the defensive struggles have forced the offense to be more ruthlessly efficient, in the sense that the opposing teams have been holding the ball a little longer, and the Bills have had fewer possessions, partly because of the defensive problems. So now you only get 8 drives. There were 9 drives plus the half a drive at the end of the first half. So that's, that cuts your margin for error. The offense's margin for error, because of the defensive woes, is less, and they need to pick it up. Now they got a couple games, that they should win. So Denver, let's see them show their true colors the next couple games, and see where they stand. I do think the possession, like you mentioned in the last segment, the possession passing game is encouraging, but they need to finish these drives. The Bills play their 3rd night game in a row, and fortunately, that's the last of 3 straight night games on this stretch. Thank God. I hate night games. It's the Denver Broncos coming to town. Denver stands 3-5. They lost to Miami 70-20, but they're coming off a 24-9 win over Kansas City. Katherine, what do we make of the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, that's a weird contrast between those two games. They've gotten better since the Miami game, since they had to, simply. But I think still this is a team the Bills can take advantage of. Particularly, you look at the defensive side of the Broncos. They have improved a little bit since that Miami game, again, because hard to not. But they are last in yards allowed. Their run defense is last. They're second to last in points allowed. This is a defense that, we'll talk about both sides of the ball, but to start with the defense, they're very much rebuilding. And I think that gives the Bills some opportunities there.
Yeah, I think, and one thing to make about Kansas City, it's a division opponent. They had just played them a few weeks before. Division games are tougher, as the Bills know from New England. And Kansas City made 5 turnovers, and Patrick Mahomes had the flu. So even if you discount his flu, 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles, hey, you make 5 turnovers against anybody, and that's a prescription for defeat. So, protecting the ball and not giving an inferior opponent undue hope, and getting off to a good start, that's the way you win games you're supposed to win. Russell Wilson, meanwhile, comes in actually after a miserable season in his first year in Denver. He is playing a little better.
Yeah, when you look at the offense, they've made some adjustments there too. This team, again, you mentioned they're coming off that win over Kansas City, which I don't know if you want to say has an asterisk or what, but then they had the bye after that. So they've had time to prepare for the Bills. This Denver offense, what stands out to you outside of Russell Wilson most about it?
Well, they are, Sean Payton is the new head coach, and give him credit. He is getting better play out of Russell Wilson. They spent a lot of money in the offseason on players, and Russell Wilson had 16 touchdowns and 11 interceptions all last season. He's already got 16 touchdown passes and only 4 interceptions. So props to Sean Payton for getting Russell Wilson back on track. But this is not a highly explosive offense. It's a condensed formations, run the ball, play action, bootleg, make things a little easier for the quarterback.
Yeah, they're running heavier personnel about 40% of their plays versus 3 wide receivers on 53. So I think just kind of looking at how they're doing these formations, they've got lots of that play action, but they'll set up some deep stuff, but not as much as explosive as other teams for sure.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, the defense is really where the Bills need to take advantage in this game. They Broncos have played and been improved the last 3 games. They've gotten a little healthier, but the Bills offense needs to flex its muscle in this game. The Bills should be able to run the ball better. I expect Ken Dorsey on Monday in his meeting with the press, talked about balance. I think the Bills are going to try and run the ball more, and as well they should, against this matchup. And the Broncos don't have elite edge rushers. They have some decent edge rushers, but they're not great rushing the passer. So the Bills should take advantage there.
Yeah, to your point, that was something Ken Dorsey emphasized over and over in his Monday news conference of just this offense needs to be balanced. And I think this is a good game to, show that balance again, to kind of get right against a team that struggles so deeply with the run defense. So it's schedule wise, I think that's probably ideal for Dorsey of after talking about so much balance to have a chance where this is a good game to show it. We'll have all your coverage of that Monday night game against the Broncos, everything leading up to it as well. So make sure you're reading on buffalonews.com and then subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to keep listening here.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.